every Aggie victory. And we do stuff like this to talk about college football playoff rankings when they come out every Tuesday and whenever we just want to pop on and talk about Aggie sports ball. So do that. Follow us on Twitter, retweet, share, all that cool stuff. But today, it's about the college football playoff rankings and the college football landscape because it was a crazy day.
It was a crazy day. We had some breaking news this afternoon, and while I recap that, check your volume a little bit, turn it down just a tad. Ohio State, their game against Michigan got canceled, and we were anticipating that might happen the day after A&M's game with Ole Miss got canceled. But with Ohio State not being able to play, that means they, at least by the rules currently, they don't qualify for their championship game. And without that, their playoff hopes, we believe, are in jeopardy. So
I think they're toast, honestly, if they don't play in that game. I really do. Unless we lost to here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, exactly. But even with that, I think the committee might look for somebody else to replace Ohio State. It's just going to be really tough to play. Basically, what do they got? They've played 4 now, right?
5.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, this weekend they've got 5. And the committee definitely sent a message last week, like we said in that show. And, we think they're going to have a really tough time. But, man, it was fascinating to watch the Twitter reaction and, just from fans from both sides, from A&M and from Ohio State when the news broke. But, man, also just all of the media, right? Because instantly everybody jumped online and was like, oh, Ohio State and A&M have to play. They have to do it. Why can't we do it? They're not going to do it. They're not.
They won't unless A&M jumps them in the rankings tonight, which we've had a bit of an argument about. You think that we will jump them tonight and end up at 4. I do not.
I do. I think the playoff committee, because like we've said a million times, they're right up the road here. They're meeting today. They're going to hand out their rankings here tonight. The playoff show is actually now up and going. So we'll know pretty quick here in a couple minutes. But I think they will. I think they'll send that message. I think they were looking for a reason to bump A&M up to number 4 last week. And I think they just might do it with this news. And that's kind of my thought, because if Ohio State then scrambles and the Big Ten scrambles and they make it so that Ohio State can play Northwestern in the Big Ten title game, then that gives them another week, another opportunity to, after that to bump them up, right? So, on the 19th, I guess, or shortly thereafter, the final rankings. It'll give them
the only way I can see them doing that is to, like you said, send a specific message to Ohio State. But I don't think it's going to happen because losing the game this weekend with Michigan doesn't affect their resume up to date. And so, last week they were 4, we were 5. They said, hey, we've thought about swapping A&M and Ohio State. Both of us then played after that. And Ohio State walloped Michigan State. We beat a team that we think is way better than Michigan State, but regardless, we didn't do it in a very flashy way. And I don't think the top 6 is going to change at all this week based on resume to date. Now, unfortunately, them losing their game would have given us an opportunity to then go out and beat the crap out of Ole Miss this weekend and end up 4 in next week's rankings. But we've lost that game too. So I think this week and next week, you're going to see exactly what we've been seeing.
Well, it's certainly possible. I think we did say, let's throw the shirt of shame bet on top of that. And, here pretty quick, one of us will be wearing it at least the next go around. But, let's talk for a second why that A&M Ohio State game is not going to be played. Frankly, I think a lot of A&M fans are kind of clamoring for it. And my question is, why? Why are they asking for that game? Because they just don't believe that things are going to fall their way, that somehow they need that resume builder. I don't think they do, but it seems like that's where folks are coming from.
Well, it depends on what you think is going to happen here. If the Big Ten forces Ohio State into the Big Ten championship game, then they're talking to us in Ohio State right now. If they force them into the Big Ten championship game, then yeah, I think that's a problem for us. And I think we're then reliant on what happens in the ACC championship game. Whereas I think if we were to somehow get Ohio State on the schedule and beat them, then it doesn't matter what happens in that game. We're in. So, if you want to control your own destiny, so to speak, then I think you want that game. You want to go win and stake your claim to the playoff. The only thing I'm a little less sure of is, even if we do play them and beat them, what happens if Florida somehow beat Alabama? I'm still not sure what happens if that dynamic plays out, but I think that might be the least likely thing in all of the playoff scenarios that favor A&M. I don't think Florida's going to beat Alabama.
Yeah, that's interesting that you brought that up, because somebody did point out this week, no loser of a conference championship game has been admitted into the 4-team playoff since it began. And that's been the talk all along, not about Florida, Alabama, but actually about Notre Dame and Clemson, that if somehow they split and Clemson beats Notre Dame and it's a close game, or even if it's not a close game, a lot of folks have said, oh, well, they'll both get in. And history says no, that's actually not what's going to happen. And so it's funny you bring up Alabama and Florida. If Florida were somehow to pull the upset, would both teams get in, because Alabama's thought of as not only number one, but a far and away number one in the country. But the playoff committee hasn't done it. That's not how they've treated this. They've treated championship games as de facto play-in games. So, yeah, there's a lot still out there to figure out.
Yeah, and I think people are thinking if they were ever going to break that trend, it would be for Alabama, and particularly this Alabama team. And I don't blame them for thinking that way. I think they might be right. But I am actually less worried than most about the loser of that ACC championship game getting in. Like you said, I think kind of regardless of what happens, if you put both of those teams in, you're talking about them potentially playing 3 times. And who wants to see that?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. No, nobody does want to see that. Gosh, is that, I guess in the BCS era, it actually happened with Alabama, LSU. Well, no, that's not true, right? They didn't play in the title game. They just played once during the regular season, and then they got a chance to play in the BCS National Championship. So they just played. Right. They just played twice.
Yes.
Yeah. So no issue there. Or nobody wants to see that game played for a third time, like you said.
Yeah. I think the interesting thing about that game is that everyone's convinced that if Notre Dame wins, Clemson falls behind us. But if Clemson wins, they have to blow Notre Dame out in order for Notre Dame to fall behind us. And to your point earlier, I don't think that's the case. If it comes down to some kind of field goal game or something, maybe. But I just think Clemson has to win, by a touchdown, maybe 10 points or something like that. I don't think it has to be a total boat race at all. But I don't know. We'll see. First rankings are coming out. Nothing all that interesting here. Missouri slips into the top 25 after that very impressive win over Arkansas.
Well, Oklahoma State dropped 7 spots.
7 spots. Wow.
Oh, well, cry me a river.
Texas somehow jumps into the top 20.
There they are at number 20.
With that rousing win over a Kansas State team that lost to Arkansas State. So
BYU only drops 5 after losing to Coastal Carolina the way that they did. Yeah. That's interesting to me.
Yeah.
Raging
big jump for Coastal Carolina.
Yeah. All right. So they only move up 5 spots to number 13. That just tells you where the committee values BYU and Coastal Carolina more than anything, right? So, it wasn't enough to get them anywhere near the top 10. Oklahoma 11, Indiana 12, Northwestern at 14. Just kind of something to keep an eye on.
Yeah.
USC up to 15, 4-0. So here's our top 10. Follow
Miami.
that one for me. Miami at 10, 8-1 Miami. Okay, we should be getting number 9 rolling in here pretty quick. I noticed our stream is stuck on this view, so I'm trying to pop it out of there, but we'll leave it on there for now.
Georgia at 9.
Georgia at 9, dropping a spot. Man, Georgia, what an interesting season they've actually had with their quarterback rotation and dropping the game to Florida the way that they did. Cincinnati drops. They come in at number 8, so they were number 7, and they've actually dropped a spot, which means somebody has bumped up at least one spot.
Mm-hmm. And again, I don't think I don't think Cincinnati's any kind of threat. I don't think the committee really values them as a contender.
So who's jumped all the way up to 7? Iowa State? Did we see Iowa State later? We didn't, did we? We didn't see them earlier. Oh my goodness! It is. It's going to be Iowa State at number 7, isn't it? With a nasty loss to Louisiana. Oh my goodness! Wow, that's going to be amazing.
Up 2 spots. What did they do this weekend? I don't even remember.
Who did they play? They took care of business. That's all I remember. I think it was a pretty easy game for them. Gosh. Yeah, West Virginia. I think they beat West Virginia. So there they are. They jumped 2 spots with a very impressive win over the Mountaineers. So Iowa State sitting at number 7. The jewel of the Big 12 in 2020 is that Iowa State Cyclones team with Matt Campbell.
To Texas?
If they were smart, but they're not. So, we'll get to that. We will get to that.
He's smart, so he won't go there.
That's true. Absolutely. Interesting conversation I had with a Texas fan today about that.
I bet they are full of interesting conversations right now.
Yeah, they definitely are in no mood to talk about it. So now we're going to get the talking heads back on the TV for a little while. Top 6 teams coming up. So look, no real shock up to this point for sure. And I'm trying to get off of that view, but it is not working for me.
So just to recap, you don't think there's any chance we're going to try to schedule Ohio State? Really, no chance they would try to schedule us. I think they view their better path is to have the Big Ten insert them into the championship game.
Right.
And beat up on one of those teams, and they're in.
Well, I mean, I'd be really interested to see what really happens if the Big Ten keeps them out and of the championship game, and then we do end up with this open date, right, on the 19th. Like if somehow Tennessee game doesn't happen for us, what does Ohio State really do? I mean, they're going to go out and have this public campaign to play A&M, and could they even do that without conference permission? That'd be some kind of massive ordeal, I'm sure. So here we go. Here's our top 6. They always start in reverse order. So they actually from prior. So they go with Alabama. Number 1. Nobody should be there. Nobody should be shocked by that. Notre Dame. Number 2. Again, no surprise. 10-0 Notre Dame, man. Goodness gracious. I would love to play Notre Dame. Clemson in the 3 spot. So the all-important question, here it comes. Who's going to be in the number 4 spot? Will it be Ohio State or A&M? Drum roll. You're going to see it before I do. Ohio State. Ohio State's sticking at number 4. So, dang it.
Shirt of shame for Brian.
Shirt of shame. I'm going to have to go find it and wear it on the next show if I can't grab hold of it. We assume A&M is going to stick at number 5. after beating up Auburn. I mean, Florida had this incredible, what was it, 14-point win over Tennessee?
Whoa, beating up on Auburn. I have it on good authority that we barely got by on Auburn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there
There
it
we
is.
go. Number 5.
Number 5, and then that means Florida will be at 6. So
Yeah.
everything stays the way it was, just like you thought. Dang it. My streak
the
is
way it
over.
was next week, too.
Yeah. Yep. That's because nobody's playing this week. So barring something crazy happening up at the top.
Alabama's playing, aren't they?
They should be. Yeah. They've got a game.
One.
Don't they have LSU? I think they have LSU. No, they just played LSU.
Played LSU.
So, gosh, my weeks are slipping past me pretty quick.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, it's going to be a boring week in college football then. That's the downside, right? So, Alabama and Arkansas. Arkansas.
No.
Has anybody had a more hard luck season than Arkansas has this time around? I mean, seriously. Those dudes.
I mean, this is an Auburn game, but other than that, what would you really call hard luck? I mean, there was really nothing there for Sam Pittman. He's done an okay job, I think. They've won, 3 games in an all SEC schedule after not winning any SEC games for 2 years. But Aggie Chad did not leave that team in good shape. And then what little talent they had left. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just don't think I've ever seen a team lose that many close games or last-second field goals. Or they had 2 games this year end on just really trashy calls. I'm not losing any sleep over it. I'm not feeling bad for them. I'm just saying, they kind of got the shaft this year. They did.
So, yeah.
They did. If you're an Arkansas fan, you feel so good after those first couple of games. Hey, we're really getting it rolling, man. This could actually happen. And then, man, every week is just a kick to the gut, except for the A&M week because we tried. We beat them up pretty good.
Oh, I don't know. I've heard different story on that game as well.
Yeah, it was really close.
Yeah. They figured it out in the fourth quarter. That's what I heard. They figured it out.
Figured out A&M, right? Well, Auburn didn't. No. They didn't pass the fourth quarter test. LSU did, though, right? Because they scored with about 90 seconds to go in the game. Not even that.
Down 20-0.
Yeah. So that's the college football playoff, though. Now they're looking at resumes and strength of schedule and strength of record and wins versus college football's top 25. They're doing all of it. Interesting, just highlighting this strength of schedule. A&M is 6th, by far and away the best strength of schedule. And then strength of record, I think they were 3rd. Which go read up on strength of record. It's kind of a weird metric. I think it's average top 25. What would their record be versus the same schedule, and then they can determine your score against that schedule. So
what matters is 3rd is good. And the committee looks at that number a little bit. So
a little bit, which is fine.
Sure.
So college football playoff rankings, that's great. We had some other interesting news drop this week, didn't we? With our little brothers down south of us.
Little brother in Austin's not having a good week.
No, things got a little rough.
Very rough.
Christmas did not come early.
No. So we've talked a lot about the massive buyout for Tom Herman, and there's been a lot of speculation that they can't even afford to do that and go after Urban Meyer because of the huge buyout and the optics of it. If they were to pay a $15 to $20 million buyout after they've laid off tons of staff at the university and whatever. But they didn't care. They were going to go after Urban Meyer anyway, and they did. And they were very excited about it. And they got told no this weekend.
They did. They got told no. And, look, these are all reports, right? Nobody from the university has come out and said anything, but the media has definitely confirmed their sources that the Urban Meyer conversations are over.
Mm-hmm.
Surprise, surprise. I think you and I both, and many other people, thought that's very far fetched, not going to happen for a million reasons. Um, Texas thought it was going to happen reportedly for 12 to 15 million reasons, depending on length of contract. It sounded like they were ready to pony up some obscene amounts of money in
I have
order
a
to make.
hard time believing 15, but 12 I think makes perfect sense to me. Um, but I think the important thing to take out of this story is that they look ridiculous. And they have made their current coach look ridiculous, and they have put themselves in a position to where they are now stuck with him through next year. And we think,
We
and are
think.
there's reports that they might still try to fall back on Plan B with some other active coaches, but
Once the season is over.
yeah, once the season is over. Um, but there's a problem with that, and that problem is I tended to kind of scoff at the idea that that's bad optics. They can't buy out Tom Herman and pay $12 million a year to Urban Meyer because it's bad optics because of what's going on at the university. I think that's it's true. It is bad optics, but they do not care at all
Right.
if they can get Urban Meyer.
Yes.
They will. The donors will pony up. There will be as much cover as they could possibly get from the administration and the media as far as those bad optics go, and they will go full speed ahead. And they'll fire Tom Herman and they'll hire Urban Meyer for an obscene amount of money. However, when you whiff on Urban Meyer, and you start looking at fallback positions like a Matt Campbell or a Cristobal at Oregon, or something like that, or even worse, another Tom Herman, another G5 coach, up and comer, and then you start talking buyout and paying a bunch of money to a new coach
in the current climate.
Then your fans revolt, the optics start getting talked about, and
Right.
you look ridiculous.
Yeah. And now, look, they look ridiculous today.
Mm-hmm.
National Signing Day is now 8 days away. And if things go the way they are trending, that's when things could change, right? Because they could start to look really bad. And, if they really whiff on any sort of big time players, not named LJ Johnson, and maybe the rest of their class kind of starts to fall apart in between, the heat's going to get turned up again, because that is the big talking point, is how can Tom Herman go into the 2022 recruiting cycle after all this mess, this flirtation with Urban Meyer, and everybody knows they're unhappy? How does he actually survive that? Because 2022 is loaded in Texas, and they have to be able to capitalize on that. Because if they don't, and A&M does, or Baylor or TCU comes in and gets a couple of these guys, and Oklahoma comes in and raids the cupboard,
Or LSU,
even though LSU's got their own issues.
Mm-hmm.
But if everybody else comes in and plucks all these blue chippers out of Texas, that's going to set Texas back 5 years, at least. I mean, that's it. And I think the guys who are really willing to write the checks are going to wake up to that fact if December 16th goes the way we think it goes, and if Texas loses another game, right? Well, I guess they're not going to play Kansas, right? So I don't know what they've got left after that, but they're going to go to a bowl game. What happens there? There's a lot left here that could influence their decision to ultimately fire him.
But I don't know what they're going to do. I think nothing they do now is going to save this class.
Yeah, it could only make it worse.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're in a bad spot.
Mm-hmm.
And you sit down with a Texas fan and you say, you start talking about Tom Herman, and they're like, "Oh, well, I've been sitting around waiting to find out what's going to happen there." And you say, "Look, here's what you're facing, right? You're facing big donors going in one direction. They want to return the program to prominence. You've got a faculty and administration and student body that's going in another direction. They think of the university completely differently, and that is a mess. Who's going to walk into that? You actually have to have an Urban Meyer walk into that to be successful. But they have to be willing to put up with it. Is Matt Campbell going to walk into that mess? I don't know. I guess it depends on how big of a check, right? So,
and is he a strong enough personality to do anything
exactly.
about it?
Yeah. Or is he going to be Charlie Strong and just wants to coach his football team and everything else just weighs him down, right? Like really a really bad cultural fit. And, Herman was a bad fit, whether they wanted to admit it or not. He was. Just because of strange personality. Mm-hmm. Anyway, Aggie football. Man, I can't believe we don't get to watch some Aggie football this week. We don't get the senior night at Kyle Field.
No.
I guess it remains to be seen whether they actually play Tennessee a week from Saturday. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know how that looks right now. Are they having any issues?
I don't think they are, other than they suck. And they may not want to play another football game. But again, it's a home game for them. That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
So,
and the SEC has said they're going to pressure everybody to play as much as they can.
Yeah, absolutely.
So if they can play, they'll play.
All right. Man, what else you got? You got anything? Except for these fancy new graphics we got. Check it out.
I know. I'm looking at this. I'm mesmerized by it. It's amazing. Yeah.
I hope you guys appreciate it. It took all of about 20 minutes to figure this out.
Yeah.
It looks better. Got a nice setup. And I would say we're going to be back on Saturday, but we're not. Maybe we'll figure out something to pop on and talk about.
I do have to say real quick, after we've talked about the crap show going on in Austin and how ridiculous it's put their current coach in an impossible position. Can we just take a moment to appreciate how A&M went about hiring Jimbo Fisher?
Yeah.
And how the story broke with only 2 or 3 days really before the signing. So that we avoided the whole media circus.
Yeah, well, and we also fired our football coach, right? The right way. After the season, we let it play out. We didn't let it play out in the media. There were certainly reports really going all the way back to the prior offseason that if a coaching change was going to be made, that Jimbo Fisher would be a target, which, ironically enough, was the national media and even a lot of A&M fans completely scoffed at that idea.
Yep.
Right? It was so lofty for A&M that it was dismissed. It was dismissed in Austin. It was dismissed in Norman. It was dismissed throughout the SEC. Tallahassee for sure. There's no way A&M's going to come in and get our guy. And A&M figured out throughout the whole SEC mess that controlling the message and controlling who you talk to and the process is just as important as the outcome. And if you want to achieve the outcome, you better do it the right way. And they did do it the right way, every step of the way. And, the things that did leak out, things played out exactly the way those leaks, predicted they would, right? Because they were intentional, right? They leaked out when we knew we had something and we knew how it was going to happen. Man, you're right. We should all be very thankful for that. We got Jimbo. Number 5 in the country. Team's playing really great. Everything's for now. Everything's in a good spot, and hope everybody's enjoying this football season. You ought to be.
I hope so too. And let's not forget that yes, we're number 5, and there are some things that could happen in front of us to get us into the playoff. But even if it doesn't, how can you be anything but completely pumped about the direction of this program? Don't listen to your idiot Texas friends or your OU trolls on Twitter or whatever saying we haven't done anything. No, we're aware of what we have not done, but we also look at the program and we know where it's going, and we have every right to be happy about that. So, just sit back and enjoy the season. It's only gonna get better from here.
Absolutely. All right, and with that, the Meltdown Show signing off. We'll be back.